PMDD makes you feel absolutely insane, absolutely crazy, and healthcare providers don't seem to have a lot of knowledge about it, and I think that's what makes it so scary. Makes you feel so alone with it. Hey guys, it's Maggie and I am back today, and today I wanted to share again about my experience with PMDD, or Premenstrual Dysphoric Disorder. I have made videos about this in the past, but I know that sometimes older videos get buried on the channel, and I did have a comment asking if I could talk about this, talk about my experience with it, what helped me, and I thought I could also include some action steps that I wish I had taken when I was really in the height of it, as well as what PMDD looks like for me today. Before I start talking about this though, I want to let you know, if you feel like you may have it, or maybe you were just diagnosed, you are not alone and you're not crazy. You just feel so out of your mind with it. At least that's how I felt. My symptoms were mainly psychological, and I just felt like I was losing my mind. So you are not alone and you are not crazy. I just wanted to let you know that. So yeah, let me get into kind of how we figured out I had it and what living with it looked like. Well, living with it was not good. There was no living. So about 5 or 6 years ago, sort of cyclical symptoms, I started to notice that I was having these bouts of just kind of extreme emotion, extreme depression. And if you're familiar with my channel, I've experienced anxiety, but never depression before. I am very fortunate to have never experienced that, and I'm grateful for it. This was my first experience with depression, and holy shit, it was terrifying. I would go into these just sobbing bouts. I would get upset over the most minuscule things, or sometimes nothing at all. I would lock myself away in our bedroom, sobbing, just absolutely beside myself. And the really key thing about this is that I could not tell you what I was upset about. If you ask Zach about it, he will, also say how horrible it was because he had to take most of it from me. He would try to console me. He would try to ask what was wrong, ask me what I wanted, how we could fix it, and I never knew what to say. I was just upset. I was just sobbing, crying. I felt like life was worthless. I felt like the only answer was to off myself. Never had that experience in my life. Absolutely horrifying. And yeah, he would try to ask me what was wrong, and then he would get frustrated because I couldn't tell him. At first I'm thinking, this has gotta be, I don't know what it is, but it's gotta be temporary, because it would go away. It would go away in a few days, a week or so, and I would feel totally back to myself. It was so bizarre. I couldn't explain it at the time. I was just like losing my mind one minute, and the next it felt like back to myself. I was two different versions of myself. It got to a point though where it was happening so much where, half of my life was spent like that. It was impacting my work life, my social life. Friends had seen me in these meltdowns. Thank God, only a couple of them. I've had a couple of work experiences where this was impacting me. I had gotten behind on some of my online modules that you're supposed to do at the hospital when you work as a nurse. Every hospital has their education that you have to complete. I was behind. I was a flex nurse, didn't have access to them at home, so I was barely at the hospital. It wasn't a big deal. But anyways, my manager brought me into her office to talk to me about it. And it was the absolute worst day that she could have talked to me about it. And she was like, hey, I just need you to finish these modules. And I lost it. And I was trying to explain to her, this, I'm not crying because of this. Like, I am not that upset about this. And I think she just thought I was crazy. I'm pretty sure she did. So that was one experience with work. Another one was in my telehealth nursing role that I had. I had some trips that I would take every now and then, and I was in the midst of a round of the PMDD when I was going to Cleveland, and I somehow held it together during the actual work hours, but when I was back at the hotel, I was crying all night. I remember almost canceling that trip because I was so depressed. And that's what really, when I started to realize, like, this is impacting every portion of my life, I need to go seek out help. And I found that that was easier said than done because, oh my gosh, people do not know about PMDD and they don't know how to handle it. At the same time, I was starting to realize this seems to be happening about 2 weeks out of the month, out of, my period cycle. So what I started to do as I was starting to go to doctors was tracking my cycle very closely. I used an app where I tracked my period. That's when I started tracking my period. And then I actually started using ovulation strips. These were very helpful for me to identify, oh, this is happening. Like, this is starting on a very exact day of my cycle. The way that I use these are just, what brand is this? This is Pregnate ovulation strips. I'll link them below. You can use any type, but I found them very helpful by taking them 1 to 2 times a day, taping them on a piece of paper with the time and the date, and basically seeing when the first line got to its darkest. That lets you know a little bit before you're supposed to ovulate. So I started to do this over the course of a few months, tracking my cycle, and the day that was my ovulation day wound up being the day that my emotions went wacko. And then I realized that the day that my period started, all of my symptoms resolved. That really helped me identify that this was cyclical and very likely related to my menstrual cycle or my monthly cycle, and it helped me kind of advocate for myself with doctors. What I found with doctors, though, was that it took me a few of them to figure out what was going on. And it may take you a few of them to figure out what's going on. I started by going to a gynecologist. I needed to get my yearly exam done anyway, so I decided to find one close by, let me go to them, get my exam done, and then also bring this up. And that was not a great experience, and I don't go to that gynecologist. I went one time, and then I never went back, because I went in there, and I saw a nurse practitioner, and she was lovely. She was very close to myself in age, so I knew that she must be a newer nurse practitioner. Got the exam done totally fine, and then she says, as we're ending the appointment, is there anything else I can help you with? And I just started to cry, and I was like, I am experiencing some really wild emotional swings, and it seems to be related to my period. It seems to happen when I ovulate. And because I was crying, I think that I shocked her. I think that I scared her a little bit because she almost looked like she was getting emotional, looked like she was about to cry. I started to feel like, oh my gosh, I definitely shouldn't have brought this up. And she said, well, here are some birth control samples. Here are some samples of, oh my gosh, it was something with royal jelly in it. She started throwing every herbal supplement at me, samples of everything she had in the office, and I went home with a bag full of medications and different stuff. And because I was in the height of it, I was not even absorbing what she was saying. I wish I could have gotten that exam done on my period, and maybe I could have held it together a little bit more. But, you can't have these exams when you're on your period, so doesn't leave a whole lot of extra time outside of that to, get an exam done when I'm not in the midst of it. So that was my first experience. Then I started talking to a friend that had dealt with a lot of different gynecologists and, female reproductive doctors because she had endometriosis and she actually had a hysterectomy. So she recommended I try out a fertility clinic because they could do different hormonal tests and look into things deeper. I was praying that some hormone level would just be off the charts, and they handled me much better, probably because they deal with women who are being put on different hormones or different therapies that can affect their hormones, and they probably see a lot of, what I was experiencing. And thankfully Zach came to that appointment too, but they did hormone tests on me and they did a transvaginal ultrasound and everything came back normal. And they didn't really know what to do with me either. So they just sent me along. And so I got to a point where I was like, I need help. I remember calling my dad, talking to him on the phone, just so upset. He's like, I can tell you are not yourself right now. And I said, I know. And I don't know why I'm so upset. I don't know why I'm so depressed. And then I just decided to go to my primary care. My primary care doctor was very relaxed. Thankfully, my new one is too. Very just like, go with the flow, throw anything at me, and it's not going to shock me. And it's probably because she's primary care. She sees it all. I said, listen, I am a fairly happy-go-lucky person, and I'm experiencing cyclical depression. And it's severe. Like, I am sobbing and it's embarrassing and it's impacting a lot in my life. And she says, okay, sounds like you've got PMDD. And I was like, really? You think I actually have it? And she goes, yeah, based on your symptoms and, you've been tracking your cycles, that's it. And so, obviously my first question was, how the heck do I manage this? And I wasn't thrilled with the answer, and I think most people are not thrilled with the typical answer to this. This is what most, I think, medical professionals recommend: birth control and antidepressants. So what we decided to do was put me on birth control and put me on Zoloft. And I will tell you, the Zoloft did absolutely nothing for that. I've been on Zoloft since, and it really helped me with anxiety. It did not do a dang thing for depression. I think we actually started with the Zoloft because I said, I am getting married soon and I am hoping to try to have children. So if I can avoid birth control, I would love that. I also don't like birth control. I forget to take it and it really doesn't make me feel that great, just like physically. So if I can avoid birth control, that would be amazing. So we started with the Zoloft. I did that for a couple months and it just didn't do anything. So I went back and I said, yeah, I think let's try the birth control because I'm desperate at this point. And it actually did help quite a bit. The birth control seemed to simmer down the symptoms, simmered down the emotional bouts, and I was able to function like a human being. And Zach noticed a difference too. He noticed that I seemed more mellow when, previously I had not been. That ticked me off because I didn't want birth control to be the thing that helped it. I wanted it to be anything else. So yeah, I was on birth control for maybe a year, something like that. And at the same time, I was heading towards my colon and rectum removal surgery. Things had gotten bad with my colon and it was time to remove that. So in December of 2019, I had to go off of the birth control for the surgery. And what I found after surgery was that, I didn't go back on the birth control, but the symptoms didn't come back. The psychological symptoms seem to have gone away. And that's what makes me think that there are so many different factors that feed into PMDD, that maybe it isn't just one cause, that maybe it's environmental and physical and hormonal and all these different things that can impact it. And I think I just had a storm of a lot of different things. I think my body was really at a bad point. My body was trying to keep this colon alive, and it kind of felt like putting all my energy and nutrients and whatnot towards this colon that was just like rejecting it and dying anyway. And, we had some stress, and my primary care did ask about that. She said, have you had any new stressors? And we had, at the time, positive stress in our life. We were starting the barn, and at the time, everything was going well with it. So I explained that to her. I said, I have stress, but it's exciting stress, like the good kind that people should have. You working towards goals and new things that you've never experienced before, but I wasn't experiencing bad stress. That being said, I was experiencing stress because of my physical condition, but it didn't feel like bad stress that I was not experiencing for years. Like, I have always had stress because of my IBD. So maybe that played into it, maybe it didn't. I have no idea. But it really seemed that once I had my surgery taken care of, I also had issues with my kidney too that I had to have surgery on. So who knows? It could have been these multiple factors that were just creating the perfect storm of PMDD. It has not reappeared in that psychological sense. I've dealt with anxiety, and that was when I started experiencing anxiety, with everything going on with our barn and stuff. My first step was, I need to start tracking my cycles again. I need to keep an eye on this, because what if it's that again? And it had absolutely nothing to do with my cycles. It was truly just when something would happen with the barn or the township or the neighbors, that's when I would have these kind of anxiety bouts and stress. So yeah, that was my experience with PMDD. If I was talking to myself 5-6 years ago when I was dealing with the worst of it, the height of it, the first thing that I would tell myself is track my cycles, get the ovulation strips, and start paying attention to that. Use an app or whatever, and glue the ovulation strips onto a piece of paper, write the date down. If you're worried that you're going to see your day of ovulation and, the psychological symptoms are going to pop up and you're kind of impacting that by knowing what day you're ovulating, just don't even pay attention to the strips. Just take them every day for a month, glue them on a piece of paper, and don't even look at the result, because you can read the result days later. The darker ones will remain dark and the lighter ones will remain light even a month later. I think I have a sheet that I did like maybe 2 years ago, and you could still tell the day that I ovulated. So just take the test, don't even look at the result, paste it on a piece of paper, then make a note in your phone when you start to notice your symptoms of, potentially PMDD pop up, and at the end of your cycle, the day your period starts, pull out that piece of paper and see if the day you ovulate is the day your symptoms appear. That's the first thing I would have started doing early on. I think I did start doing that pretty early, but it didn't take long for me to notice this is really cyclical. I would also tell myself, you may not find the doctor that's going to help you from the get-go. It may take a few doctors. For myself, it did take 3. At least it took 3 healthcare professionals to go through: a gynecologist, a fertility doctor, and the successful one was my primary. So it might take a little bit to find the person that's going to help you. Please do not give up. I would also tell myself to find a support person, and thankfully, I already had Zach, but somebody that you can talk to who will be understanding that what you're saying might not make sense. As Zach and I learned that this was PMDD, what honestly was the biggest help in this was understanding that what I was saying and what I was feeling really didn't have a cause that I could identify. So Zach and I talked about that, and when I was not in the 2 weeks of hell, we discussed what would be helpful when I have these bouts of just severe depression and crying and terribleness. And, I told him, I'm not going to be able to tell you what's wrong because there might not be anything wrong. And I don't want you to get frustrated with me because you can't help me. What would help me is if you just sit by my side while I'm in this. Don't judge me. Don't, ask me questions that I won't be able to answer. Just sit next to me and make sure that I am physically okay. So that helped me too. And I think the last thing is be open to different potential treatments. I think, especially if you deal with chronic illness, doctors will say, diet and exercise are going to be your miracle. Like that's going to be the thing that helps you. And I think automatically we turn off to that person and we're like, nope, you're not listening to me. This is something more major going on. But after looking back at what I experienced and how there could have been multiple factors impacting this, I think that it could have been tackled in multiple ways. Birth control, yes, did work. Helped me. I hated being on it though, and was super glad when I was able to stop. But I think if I had implemented multiple changes, been willing to try things, maybe I would have found some different ways that could have at least improved some of the symptoms. Those are the things I wish I could have told myself back then. because it was just so scary. I felt so alone. I didn't know anybody else with PMDD. It's kind of an embarrassing thing to talk about when you have random meltdowns as an adult. It's like throwing a tantrum, except you have no control over it. You feel absolutely insane. But yes, where am I today with PMDD? So like I kind of said, the psychological symptoms have definitely subsided. And you know, when looking up online the causes of this, there really isn't a one singular cause that research has found, but they say that it could be a sensitivity to hormonal changes. Growing up with my period into college and early adult life, I never really noticed cyclical changes. I didn't know when I ovulated. I didn't really know when my period was going to start. And since this whole experience and after surgery, I have noticed many different signals. I don't know if I just wasn't experiencing them before and things kind of regulated themselves after my surgery, or if I have just become more aware of them now because I had to track everything so much. But I now can tell you, based on physical changes in my body, when I'm ovulating and when my period is coming, I've become so much more aware of the feeling of ovulation. I can feel the cramping. I even get some bladder pain and spasms, probably because of my surgery. I think things are more sensitive down there, but like I feel like I have a UTI when I am about to ovulate, and it's not a UTI. And it goes away once ovulation is done. It only lasts maybe 12 hours. I notice cervical mucus change that I never noticed before. I notice a lot more chest pain and honestly growth since surgery. Like I fluctuate in my bra size during my cycle. It's wild. I never experienced that before. And as I head towards my period, I have kind of like pre-period spotting that I didn't experience before surgery. I notice different cramps that I didn't feel before. It used to kind of just be when my period started, I was cramping, and now I notice cramping leading up to my period. I don't know if this is related to the PMDD or related to just having my body be in a healthier state, maybe things working a little bit more as they should. But I know I can tell when certain hormones are going up and down. I spent a lot of time educating myself about that because it kind of felt like my life was revolving around that, which just sounds crazy when I've dealt with all these other medical issues. But that was the focus. That was definitely the focus of the time. Anyways, guys, that is kind of my experience with PMDD. What I would recommend if you're going through it right now, going through these really scary symptoms and you're not really getting a lot of good feedback from your doctor, a lot of information from your doctor, and also where, I am today. I hope that this video helps you. I hope that you know you are not crazy. This is a very real disorder, and if you had told me about it before I ever experienced it, I would have probably rolled my eyes and been like, you're just PMSing. No, it is multiple levels above PMS. It's wild. Okay, I hope that you are doing well. I hope you're feeling great, and I will see you guys very soon. Bye, guys.